Hello YouTube, welcome to Swag Magician Music, where music is my liver because I don't have enough swag to get a real one, and because if you have music, what else do you really need? Thank you for clicking on the video. Today we're going to be reviewing Kid Cudi's Satellite Flight, The Journey to Mother Moon. Kid Cudi pulled a Beyonce on this one, just dropping it pretty much in the middle of the night. He gave Twitter an hour notice, and while people knew that the album was going to be coming around sometime around when it did, no specific date was given. An interesting thing about this album is that it was originally supposed to be an EP, and he ended up turning it into a full-sized album. So let's just get right into the review. Kid Cudi delivers an album that only has 10 tracks, and 3 of those are instrumentals. And the first thing that you're going to get with this album is that there's not a lot of rapping. In fact, he only raps on 1 track. Well, a lot of it is just Kid Cudi singing and also letting the instrumentals ride out a lot. It's very spaced out with his singing. It's not like a lot of verses followed by a two-chorus structure. It's just kind of like we'll have a small verse and then there's a chorus, maybe another small verse, and then let the chorus ride out and the instrumental go. And that's pretty much every track on this album. Now, if you've been following Kid Cudi, you know that he has a lot of reoccurring themes within his albums between Man on the Moon Part 1, Man on the Moon Part 2, and Indicud. And it's important to recognize that this album, while it is its own standalone album, it's really trying to build up for Man on the Moon Part 3, which will be releasing sometime in the near future. Kid Cudi himself says the last track on this album, Troubled Boy, is actually meant to be a cliffhanger for Man on the Moon Part 3. So it's important to recognize a lot of things that he's doing on this album are meant to just build up for his next one. It's almost kind of a prequel when you look at it that way. However, this album really needs to be recognized as his own standalone album. I think it's a huge step up from Indicud. Any Kid Cudi fan will probably tell you Indicud was one of his worst pieces of work under the Kid Cudi name. Obviously he has a side project as King Wizard, but that's an entirely different thing. The thing was about Indicud is you started to see him rapping less and doing more sing-songy stuff more. The only problem was on that album is the production was not there, and the lyrics when he did rap were not there either. Kid Cudi himself has said that recently for him to rap, it's very hard. He's pretty uninspired most of the time. And so when he does rap, it's because he's fueled about something, and that's why you only have 1 track that's rapped on this album. In all of the aspects that I talked about there, this album is a huge step up from Indicud, and I think could be said is a huge step up from any of his albums. He delivers a really focused album in terms of its thematic message and its feel. Again, he continues this type of feel of being isolated, however, he takes it a bit of a different direction. And it's something that he's been kind of, partly inferring in his last albums and has been building. With this album, you really get it. While he feels isolated, he's not so much feeling lonely like he was in Man on the Moon Part 1 or Man on the Moon Part 2. It's not so much of a depressed isolation. In fact, you could say he almost feels positive about his isolation. A lot of it feels like, I'm isolated, yeah, but I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing it. Everything I'm working towards, and I have pride in what I've accomplished. And rather than having to be like, okay, I feel really lonely because it's just me, or feeling like it's just me because that's all I need, he makes it comes off as, I understand that it's just me, and I've accepted it, and I've learned to move on and better myself anyway. And you're going to feel that throughout every single track on this album, except for 1, which is Balmain jeans. However you pronounce that word, I don't know, it's Versace. We're going to call them Versace jeans. Louis Vuitton! And Cudi is doing a really better job of displaying the emotion that he's putting behind these tracks in his lyrics and in his vocals. Again, he's singing a lot on this album, but a lot of it is also... However, when he does this, for the most part, when he makes these sounds and when he sings, you can feel that there's a feeling behind them, like an internal bleeding. When you first hear the track, he's altering his voice to make it sound a little bit more internally pained. It's coming off very, almost more hoarse than how he usually sings. And the reason is, if you look into what he's saying in the lyrics and obviously the song title, is because he's feeling pain inside, and so he's displaying that pain in his emotion. While it's somewhat simplistic, it's also a huge step up for Cudi, and it actually makes the song really enjoyable. And I think for this single reason is why this album is such a huge upgrade. Cudi is taking a single emotion or a single feeling and he's focusing on it and he's building it. And he's building it in a really good way, not only through his lyrics and his song structure, but through his production. This album is the best produced Kid Cudi album by far. It has amazing production, and while the beats aren't something that are going to really grab you necessarily, when you hear them, and you hear them in the context of the album and over Cudi's lyrics, they really fit. And I think it is able to provide the kind of feeling that Cudi wants to display on this album. A lot of these tracks feel kind of spacey, and by spacey I don't mean like really open. I mean like space, like extraterrestrial, like the galaxy. He also provides a couple of mystifying beats that are kind of more almost creepy, but they're kind of unsettling in a way, such as In My Dreams 2015, which obviously features a sample from a track on his first album, In My Dreams. And it seems like whenever Cudi is going over these beats, when he's singing, the lyrics, what he's trying to say, really matches the production, and it really helps build this feel of what he's trying to develop here, and he does a great job with it. Again, like I said, his thematic message and his lyrics are very focused, the most focused out of all Kid Cudi projects. Well, in the same way, this production is very to having the feeling that Cudi wanted to display. While the beats are extremely layered, they don't feel layered. It feels like if you were inside the beats, instead of everything just kind of be swirling around you, there's this aspect of the beat all the way over here, and this is all the way over here. So while you listen to the beats, like, it's very layered. There's a lot of stuff that's going into these beats. He still makes it to sound very spaced out and kind of open if you were inside the beat. I'm sure I'm not doing the best way of describing it, but I think you can get what I'm saying. It feels like there's a lot of room to breathe in these beats, even though they actually are extremely layered, surprisingly so. The most obvious display of that is on the track Return of the Moon Man, which is one of my favorite Kid Cudi tracks by far. This is one of the instrumentals, along with Copernicus Landing and the intro track Destination Mother Moon. But Return of the Moon Man, the production is the only time for a Kid Cudi track that I can say the production itself is telling me a story. And it tells you a story of being kind of triumphant, a little remorseful looking back on what you've been through and still kind of the situation that you're in, but very prideful in what you've accomplished on your own doing. And you get that with this very kind of loud, noisy instrumentation that he puts in the beginning of the track and at the end of the track. And then you also get it in the middle, the part that I'm talking about, kind of a little remorseful, when he brings in an electronic acoustic guitar around the middle of the song. And he's trying things that he hasn't really done on his other albums. He's incorporating some EDM elements onto this album as well, and while they aren't always really audible, they're there in the background. You can definitely hear them, and that's why I believe that this album is really layered, is because he's put a lot more stuff into the production especially. Now, it's important to notice the fact that, like I said earlier, he only raps on one track on this album, and it's too bad I have to destroy you now. And while it is his only rapping track, he still doesn't rap for very long. It has about one verse on the track, and you listening to this album are gonna honestly be okay with that. If you only like Kid Cudi for his rapping, obviously, you're not going to really enjoy this project. You're going to love this song, because I believe Kid Cudi delivers one of the most clever verses that he's written ever. Flow-wise, he does an amazing job. His flow and technique are on point. They sound great, and he does a good job of matching the beat. Even though he's rhyming more aggressive than the beat is not very aggressive, and the hook and bridge are not very aggressive either. But he has passion in his lyrics here. He does a great job of displaying it, but still sounding good and easy to listen to. Like when he raps the lyric, "All hail King Wizard in the fucking house." Like, you think about that itself, that's like, "All hail King Wizard in the fucking house." But he sings like, "All hail King Wizard in the fucking house." You know, it's not like he's singing it, but it's very almost melodic rapping. And he just makes it sound really chill, but the lyrics themselves are aggressive. This is one of the most interesting things about Cudi, that he's not only doing it on this album, obviously, it's kind of a staple of his rapping, but I think it just really hits you harder on this album because he's very selective with how he wants to rap. And he delivers a lot of clever bars on this track. While it's kind of surface value, what he's saying necessarily isn't. He has this line that says, "Pardon my wizard talk, but I'm elevated. No drink, no tree, but I'm levitated." And you know, on itself, it's pretty self-explanatory, but thinking about it on itself, like his rhyme scheme and his flow, and just the bar itself, it's actually a pretty clever bar. So I'm actually okay with Cudi being really selective with when he wants to rap, because when he does, like on this album, he delivers fire. It was an amazing verse for sure. Finally, the only thing I have against this album is I don't really understand Balmain jeans. I think the thing is for me is like when you listen to this album, it feels very conceptual, like it feels very focused onto one theme, and that's kind of like this isolation, not necessarily negatively viewed, but nonetheless it's still very, you still get this very feel of isolated and the emotional distress that comes with that. Such as in a track Troubled Boy, which listening to it, it's like he's saying no one wants a troubled boy, leave alone the troubled boy. But the thing, and it sounds very kind of almost depressing, but then later in the track he's saying show them you're a stronger boy. So he's saying, you know, while you're isolated, be yourself and strive anyway. And that's like I said before, is what you're getting on this album. However, on Balmain Jeans, and I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, so fuck off, he doesn't really give you, Balmain Jeans gives you a very sexualized love song. Then just from what the rest of the album is, it doesn't really fit at all. The song itself sounds good. In fact, it's a song that sounds so good that I would make love to it. But it's just in the album, I don't really think it fits. I think it kind of distracts the listener away from the emotions and the thematic messages that he's trying to display in the album. And it almost makes it a little bit more confusing to try to understand the album as a whole. When I first heard the album the first 1 or 2 times, thinking about what he's trying to do with this album, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of isolation, there's some triumphantness, and there's a little bit of feeling of loneliness. But then there's Balmain Jeans, where he has a sexualized love song, obviously, and it's a very specific love song, it's still one female. And it's like, okay, well, if he's isolated, why is he singing to one female? And it could be something that I'm missing. I feel like this track is just a track that Kid Cudi made, and he's like, it's not a concept album, so I'll just throw it on there anyway. This song could just be scratched off the album for me. I don't really enjoy listening to it in the context of the album. If I'm going back and just listening to random tracks, it's definitely a very enjoyable song. On that point, it deserves its merit. Its song structure is very enjoyable. It's a very chilled song, but it's, you know, really enticing for what it's trying to display in terms of being a more sexualized love song, which you don't get a lot. I mean, you get a good bit. Most love songs are kind of introduced as being love and not really more sexually focused. Overall, Kid Cudi delivers a really focused project here, all the way from his lyrics to his production. He raps less and you don't even care. He does such a great job doing everything else on this album, displaying these feelings of loneliness, isolation, but triumphantness and pridefulness, that you don't miss the rapping, because you're like, if Kid Cudi's not going to rap and he's going to give me this, I'm perfectly fine with that. Overall, this album gets a very good score from me. I would give it a 9.2, with my favorite tracks being Return of the Moon Man, one of the best produced tracks I've ever heard from Kid Cudi, and probably my favorite Kid Cudi track, even though it is an instrumental. Too Bad I Destroy You Now, where Kid Cudi delivers an absolutely amazing verse. And Troubled Boy, where we get this conflicting kind of ideals here, but it still ends up being a positive kind of outlook on being isolated. While Balmain Jeans isn't my favorite song from this album by far, it's my least favorite. Doesn't make it a bad song at all, I just do not believe in the context of the album it necessarily fits. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you think I'm missing something about the album, whether I'm giving it too high a score, too low a score, maybe I'm doing the perfect score, go ahead and leave your comments in the description. I enjoy feedback. Do not be hesitant to let me know what you think. If you didn't like the video, go ahead and leave a like. If you didn't like it, go ahead and leave a dislike. Either way, feedback is much appreciated. And if you want to see more, go ahead and click subscribe on my channel. And again, guys, thanks for watching. This has been Swag Magician Music, where music is my lover because I don't have enough swag to get a real one. And if I have music, what else do I really need? Kid Cudi, Satellite Flight, The Journey to Mother Moon. We'll see ya.